First, say thank you all for having me. Thank you, Travorce, for coordinating this and having me here. And a special thank you to my pastor, Pastor Houston, and First Lady Houston, for having this platform as well. Tonight, I want to just start with the word asset. And what is it that you think of when you hear that word asset? What comes to mind? Maybe your house, your savings account, your retirement, your education, some folks, your business, your investments. But let me ask you a major question. Who has to build those assets? Who has to manage them? Who has to work to create through them? And hopefully, who gets to enjoy them? You do. And that is what I want to talk through tonight. Your biggest asset, you. Your mental health, your physical health, your ability to think, your ability to move, your ability to function, your ability to show up for people and purposes that matter to you. Because you can build all kinds of wealth, but if you're not here to facilitate that what you're building, what difference does it really make? I want to share my screen. I'm sorry, I didn't even do that. Let's see. I thought you all could see my presentation. I apologize. Share. Okay, can you all see that?
Yep, we see your slide deck. Yes, ma'am.
Great, great. And so you are you're your greatest asset. You are what truly makes the difference. All of those things that we typically think are assets, we are greater than all of those things because if we are not managing our health in every form, none of those assets even matter. Uh-oh. Okay. We've all heard this scripture before, right? But beloved, I wish above all things that thou may prosper and be in health. When we talk about prospering and building wealth, we also think about leaving an inheritance, starting that business, buying homes, creating legacy. But I don't believe we should spend our entire lives building something that we're too sick, too stressed, too exhausted, or even too depleted to enjoy. So tonight, let's look at health a little bit differently. Not just something that we think about or talk about inside of the doctor's office. I want us to look at health as an asset that requires stewardship. I'm going to walk you through a framework that is at the heart of everything that I do through Glam Wellness Group. It's our reset framework. Recognize, evaluate, strengthen, establish, and thrive. Recognize is simply to pay attention to your body. Pay attention to your body when you hear the whisper, not when you hear the scream. I was 27 years old when I survived not one, but two strokes 3 days apart. I was a mom, a wife, a business owner. I was a veteran. At that time, I had no idea that at 27 years old, the word stroke would even be attached to my life. It was something that came out of left field. And I will tell you that going through a pregnancy with my last daughter changed my life. I was diagnosed with preeclampsia. I'd never even heard of it prior to that. It's having high blood pressure during pregnancy. And my OB doctor told me once you have the baby, it's going to go away. Everything's going to be okay. But it didn't. That was not my story. And so 10 days after delivering my daughter, I woke up with the most unimaginable headache I could ever describe. And that was the beginning of having a bleed on the right side of my brain, a stroke that left the entire left side of my body paralyzed. At 27 years old, I would have never thought that my life would have looked like that. I had plans, I had responsibilities, I had a baby. And I certainly wasn't walking around thinking, you know what I need to worry about today? Having a stroke. furthest thing from my mind. But our body communicates. Sometimes it whispers, sometimes it taps you on the shoulder, and sometimes, if you're not paying attention, it starts screaming. And that stroke was a scream from my body. Now, that doesn't mean that every headache means something catastrophic. It doesn't mean you should panic over every change in your body, but it does mean that we should pay attention and we should know our bodies. We shouldn't normalize feeling emotionally overwhelmed or even physically in pain. We shouldn't normalize things that really we should pay attention to and brush off with terms like, I'm good, I'm fine, I got it. Meanwhile, meanwhile, you haven't been fine since Cat was a kitten. Sometimes we call strength really survival with makeup on. So I want to say this especially here in this space. Being strong does not mean you never need support. It doesn't mean that recognizing something is wrong makes you weak. It makes you aware, and that is what we want to be aware. What have you been noticing that you've been dismissing? The E is evaluate. You can't manage what you don't measure. And so oftentimes we get to this place where, we're trying to figure out how did this happen to me? But our body has been giving us warning signs and symptoms and all along that we may have been dismissing. The very biggest thing that I always communicate is that you should know your numbers. You should know what your normal blood pressure reading is because when it's elevated or if it's too low, you'll know that it's off. You should know what your cholesterol numbers are. You should know what your A1C numbers are. You should know your numbers because your numbers will never be the exact same as someone else's numbers. You should also know your family history. And I want to just give an example here. My husband passed away in 2011 from thyroid cancer. Knowing that family history for my daughters is crucial, is huge. There are a lot of medications that if you have a family history of the same type of thyroid cancer, medullary thyroid cancer that my husband passed away from, there are certain medications that my daughters can never take. And so knowing your family history makes a difference. Knowing your current reality. Not all of us operate in the same manner, but knowing what your limitations are, knowing the things that is in your reality makes a difference, not someone else's. Keeping your appropriate appointments and screenings matter. There are many times that we can derail disease, miss it altogether because we were on top of our health. We noticed those changes as soon as they happen. We didn't let them come and consume us. We're on top of it. And here again, we can see all of those numbers that we should be knowing. I think that this is not the right slideshow. Okay. The next letter in reset is strengthen. Your habits compound too. And so that family history is huge. And again, I just shared one example of why knowing your family history is so important. Those small choices that we make every single day become patterns. And oftentimes, when I share with people that it's just little changes that we can make, things that we can modify in our lifestyle that lead to big results, they oftentimes don't believe me because we live in a society that we want microwave results, right? We don't want to put things in an oven and let it take 45 minutes to an hour to get done. We want to make a change and see the result right away. But that is not realistic. That is not how life works, and that is certainly not how our health works. Our patterns influence our outcomes. And so, things that we do on a daily basis, small changes like drinking the water, like incorporating movement on a daily basis, those small choices, they compound to something huge. You don't want a catastrophe being the wake up call in your family. when you can implement these reset steps, again, small changes will make huge outcomes. There are deposits and there are withdrawals. And I want to just kind of briefly touch on them because every day we get to make one or the other. And those small changes, those small decisions matter. So, some of the withdrawals that are taken away from us: unmanaged stress, poor sleep, inactivity, ignoring concerns, missing your appointments, and always putting yourself last. Women, I'm going to call us out because we are the biggest proprietors of putting ourselves last, right? I remember the day that I woke up having that massive headache. I had a newborn. She was 10 days old. I did not go to the emergency room when I knew I should have because all I could think of was taking my newborn baby into an emergency room would be the nastiest place on earth for her to be. Putting myself last, right? And we do it all the time. Wives, moms, we have things to do for the family. We have children to get to school. We have, kids to get to practice. Everything comes before us. But if we are not secure, if we are not stable, we can't do anything for anyone else. So let me talk about the deposits that we get to choose to make every day for us. We get to decide to have movement. And there are some folks who give me pushback and say, I don't have a gym membership. Well, let me tell you something. You don't necessarily have to have a gym membership to get movement in every single day. You have stairs in your home. You could go up and down your stairs. If you're not able to do that, you have canned goods. You have something that you can pick up and put down while you're sitting on your sofa. You want to be creative. You want to start to think outside of the box. How can I get my movement in every day? And before you go to bed, that accountability. Did I get my movement in today? Is there still time before I go to sleep? You want to get deposits like with rest and recovery. And I will say this and share that, saying to someone that you need to get rest is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of resilience. Knowing when your body is giving you signs that you need rest, you have to be that steward over your body to say, you know what? This can wait. My body is telling me this is what I need right now. And do that without feeling bad about it. Nourishing food. Eating healthy, I hear all the time, it costs more. It costs more to eat healthy. It costs more not to eat healthy. Let me tell you, we are going to pay a cost, and we can pay that cost today or we can pay that cost later. And later, I can tell you, will be the times when your grandchildren want you to show up for them. When your grandchildren want you to be actively involved in the things that they're doing. But we made decisions yesterday that can prevent us from even being able to do that. So, nourishing food is highly important. Our bodies are a temple. We want to treat it as such. Preventive care. That annual exam saves lives. So we want to make that a priority. We want to let our employers know, hey, I need to be at this appointment. This is my life. And that's the level of importance that we want to give to that care for ourselves. And then support and consistency. I just remember being a mom and a veteran living in Virginia, but my entire family lived either in Philadelphia or in North Carolina. That support was something that was, oh my goodness, so crucial. I would have my parents coming down to help with the kids. I would have, other family members that offer support, but you have to identify who is your support system. When my husband was sick and battling cancer, we had a huge support system through Gethsemane. And so sometimes it's not your blood family. Sometimes it is your extended family, but you need to identify who your support system is and lean on them for that support. E is establish, and we want to establish different things here, many different things. This is the part I think that we oftentimes miss. A lot of people already know what they should do, right? You know that you should drink more water. You know that stress isn't helping you. It's not about what we know or don't know. You know the appointment you've been putting off needs to be scheduled. So sometimes the problem isn't knowledge. The problem is that our lives are not structured to support what we know. We don't need another motivational speech telling us do better. We need systems. We need routines. We need boundaries. We need support. And that includes with our mental health. Sometimes we've been taught that strength means carrying everything without saying anything, especially in families, especially in leadership, and yes, especially in church. But faith and support can coexist. You can pray and talk to a counselor. You can believe God and still say, I need help. You can be a strong person and still need somewhere safe to put what you've been carrying on. And you can love serving people while recognizing that you also require restoration. Mark 6:31 says, Come ye yourselves apart into a desert place and rest a while. Jesus was speaking to people who were serving. He told the disciples to come away and rest because so many people were coming and going that they didn't even have time to eat. Does that sound familiar? Could that possibly be what's going on in your life? Think about that. These people were doing meaningful work, serving, helping, showing up, and they still needed rest. Some of us have spiritualized exhaustion. I'm just busy doing the Lord's work. Meanwhile, your body is somewhere filing a grievance. Rest is not irresponsibility. Recovery is not laziness. Rest is a part of stewardship. Establish the systems that allow your health to become part of your life instead of something you only think about when there's a crisis. Thrive. My health story could have ended with survival. I survived, okay? But I don't believe survival was supposed to be the end of the story. My experiences became part of what led me into advocacy, into health education, into helping other people make choices before a crisis makes them pay attention. And that's what I want to tell you. There is more attached to your health than a medical chart. There are people attached to your presence. There are memories you haven't even made yet, places you haven't gone, ideas you have not built, people you haven't helped. There may be businesses you haven't launched, books you haven't written, grandchildren you haven't met, assignments you haven't completed. Your health matters because your presence matters. And thriving does not mean nothing difficult will ever happen. It means you stop leaving your health completely to chance. You have to 111 reset. And this is something that I really hold in a high regard. When you want to leave, so I want to leave this really simple thing with you. Number one is knowing your numbers. And we talked about which numbers are vitally important to know: your blood pressure, cholesterol, A1C. You want to make sure that you know those numbers so that when they change, you know that there has been a change, that's something you need to address. One number to know: what health number or piece of information do you think right now you need to know or find out? One habit to strengthen. What's one realistic habit that you can improve consistently? I'm not asking you for a complete overhaul. What's that one habit that you think you can improve consistently? Maybe it's walking. Maybe it's better sleep. Maybe it's hydration, food preparation, stress management. Whatever the reset requires, what is that one habit? And then finally, what is one action that you can take, that you can commit to tonight, that you can say, I've been postponing this. Perhaps it is making that appointment. Perhaps it's a conversation that needs to be had. Maybe it's a boundary. It could even be asking for help, getting that screening, making a change that you've known that you need to make. That's your 111 reset. A reset doesn't require you to build your life all over, especially not tonight. It requires you to decide what happens next. You can discover your reset and where it begins by taking your reset health assessment. This is a free assessment. It gives you a current reset snapshot. It lets you know what's your strongest health asset because sometimes we can think, oh, all of these negative things consume me. And it might just be one piece that you're missing. It might be a small tweak that you can make to improve where you are today. This assessment is going to give you your greatest reset opportunity and give you personalized next step recommendations. It will give you your 7-day reset focus as well as your 111 reset plan. There are also some folks who may need, some encouragement or some practical food inspiration. And I want to encourage you to follow my cooking page on Resilient Reset Kitchen. That is the Facebook page. It's a free page, and the assessment is free. So you can get some food inspiration on that Resilient Reset Kitchen page, and you can take your reset health assessment. This is the wrong slideshow because the QR code isn't there. But the website for that reset assessment is glamwellnessgroup.com/reset. And maybe the team has the correct slide that they can put the slideshow up and have this last screen on here while we're taking Q&A. Thank you all so much.